Hi, my name is Alexis Scarborough, and I grew up in a home with childhood domestic violence, or CVD. Domestic violence was tolerated and accepted not only by my parents with each other, but also with my grandparents, my grandfather being the perpetrator. In their quest for happiness, my parents ran away from their abusive families only to go and create one themselves. Frequent moves, a lack of sympathy, and shame were the constants in my life. My mother's gentleness consisted of a flat palm patting on my head like someone pets a mangy dog. She told me when I was a little girl that her mother had never hugged her and that she didn't know how to hug. So I thought I could teach her, but she just didn't catch on. When my mother left my abusive father, she took my brother and I over country lines, leaving my AWOL father in Canada unable to do a thing about it, and then she divorced him. I started having night terrors and sleepwalking and sleep paralysis and IBS and hair and nail chewing. I even developed hemorrhoids by the age of 8 because I was in fight or flight. Within 2 years, my mother remarried an imposter. He came in suave and cool and playing with me like a good father should, but as soon as the wedding vows were spoken, he dropped the show and reverted into a cruel, taunting man who didn't take no for an answer and didn't let anyone talk back to him. My mother excused his bad behaviors and sided with him and told me, like her mother before her, that I needed to learn how to talk to my new daddy. I refused to call him daddy, and he grew hateful towards me, and his belt was always at the ready. To make matters worse, my mother's sexual shame built up to a crescendo, and she started dragging us to church to save her from her sins. She worshipped Jesus, and my stepfather followed along. The rules were drastic and chaotic. In my early years, I realized that I was competing with my stepfather for my mother's attention, so I started to give up. And then my mother started projecting her sexual shame on me, and her deepest fears, too, scarring me. Her religion became a weapon, and she cut me down in front of friends, calling me a whore at age 12, even though I wasn't promiscuous. Domestic violence continued on into my marriage. My husband assaulted our firstborn child and then swore me to secrecy. CDV had taught me that the world would chew me up and imprison me, and he ran with that. And I tried to trust him, but after 22 years, plus becoming disillusioned by the Bible's inconsistencies, I decided I couldn't keep going anymore. I got into therapy, and I found that I couldn't tell the truth. I was just frozen in terror. I feared my children would be taken away from me, and I feared retaliation. I went through 2 therapists before I got up the nerve to speak. And then I called RAINN, and I told them, and they helped me start getting out of my marriage. When I divorced my husband, my parental figures took him into their home and under their wing, knowing what he had done. When I wouldn't take him back, they shunned me and all 8 of my children, hoping that like the prodigal son I'd come back groveling. But I didn't, and they started tormenting me. They stalked me. They sent false letters from Child Protection Services. They left slanderous messages on my answering machine and millions of texts for the kids to relay to me after a long day of work. It took some time and some guts from me, but I put some order of protections against them and ended contact with them, and then I was able to start healing. Out of desperation to have a partner assist me, I rekindled a toxic relationship from my past with a man who promised me and my children the moon, and then just like my stepfather, he switched into a controlling, manipulative man, and soon my children were saying those same things I had once said to my mother years ago. Before I could get him out of our home, though, he strangled me, and I had to use self-defense against him, just like I tried with my stepfather, but this time I succeeded because I took training. He was arrested and removed from our home permanently, and the city put an OFP against him to keep him away. After a few weeks of detoxifying from him, I started looking at all that I had accomplished without him, all by myself, and I knew I could do anything, probably. But I continued therapy, trying different antidepressants and benzos that my psychiatrist offered, and I dealt with all the horrible side effects from weaning off each to try another. Nothing helped me better than getting out of that environment and finding a good therapist who was well versed in CVD. I also used marijuana to help me detox from the big pharma's meds, which only gave me side effects plus my symptoms from CVD. And 2 years ago, I threw myself fully into healing. My employment situation was terrible. I spent 6 years in restaurants serving and bartending, and I noticed how abusive it got. Working production work drained me mentally, financially, and physically. So I decided to try something new recently. I was frozen from further education, unable to achieve a college degree, solo parenting, and needing income. So I typed into the job search bar public service, and I found a direct support professional position. I took a chance and they hired me, and the training has been incredible. I'm using these strategies that I've learned through the training on myself and on my children with incredible results, and today I'm working with folks who are mentally ill just like me. Coaching and supporting others has become a very fulfilling position. I'm not only working as a job coach for about 2 months now, but already I've seen changes and improvements in my life and for my children. Also, I've filled and refilled those orders of protection and harassment against my parental figures for 7 years now. They're both on their third each, and according to the paperwork, the next one I file will go to 50 years. They refuse to acknowledge any wrongdoing and shame and insult me for asking them to repent. And it's sad because my parents would groom me into CVD, into accepting it, and then shame me and slander me when I found that I was in a toxic relationship. They're masters of denial and abuse, and they're maladaptive. And it's as if they think they can do no wrong because they have Jesus. I've been writing my life story, drawing and painting my memories, and I hope to shed light on CVD as it causes a whole slew of disabling symptoms to a growing child and an adult survivor. Pete Walker's books, The Tao of Fully Feeling and C-PTSD from Surviving to Thriving, have validated, educated, and accelerated my healing from CVD. And I'd like to add that my parenting style has morphed for the better. I've got much more to learn, but I'm surrounding myself with loving, safe people now, and I'm no longer tolerant to CVD or any forms of abuse for that matter. The best advice I have to give is to be honest with yourself. Learn to love the child that you were, because no one else did and no one else will. Practice self-care too, because that's really important. I was handed a bum hand, but with radical acceptance, I can create my own new family without denial or abuse or CVD. And for the first time in my adult life, I finally feel like I can achieve whatever it is that I want.